So welcome everybody. This is Christian Lockhart with SportsEyeQ, and I'm excited for today's guest, um, Dedrique Taylor, head coach, men's basketball program at Cal State Fullerton University.
Yes,
Appreciate you
sir.
coming
Thank you
on.
for having me. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. You can only be first once, and I appreciate the opportunity to be first on your show.
First one on the show, so when you said yes, I was like, love it, because we've had some good conversations over the last couple years in
Sure.
passing, but I respect, the more I looked into you, the more I've talked to you, the more I respect everything about you. Um, So I'm
Absolutely
going to run down
appreciate
some
it.
things that I saw, right? So we see, because I think it's important too, historical stuff, right? Pomona High School, Pomona, California,
Yes, sir.
right? Then we went the route of Kings River Community College, which is now Reedley College. And then we went the
Yes,
route of
sir.
Armstrong Atlantic State, which is now Armstrong State, right? To UC Davis, where we
Yep.
finished up with a bachelor's in sociology and organizational studies. And then we finalized with
Yes,
a
sir.
master's in sports administration from the United States Sports Academy, I believe, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Awesome. So some other things of note, I want everybody to understand, um, two-time Big Western Conference champion, right? Coached in the big dance. Um, oh, chair of the Division One men's basketball ethics committee coalition.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we've had some high
That
moments
is
in there. I say all that to say this though, they're not always high moments, right? And so what I really want to
no.
start off is, how do you deal with times of adversity when things aren't all roses?
Mm. Yeah, that's hard. I think the most important thing, and it's easier said than done, is to give yourself grace to be the best version that you can be within the confines of whatever situation you're in. And it doesn't mean that you're going to achieve success. It doesn't mean that success is right around the corner. It only means that you are very, very consistent with what it is that you can control.
That's
We
right.
spend, or I should say, I spend a lot of time as a human, as a coach, as a dad, as a friend. I spend a lot of time worrying about things that I can't necessarily control. I have no idea what's the outcome of that situation, and so it distracts me from focusing on what I can control. And what I can't control in those situations are my energy, my effort, and in a lot of spaces, my intentionality behind what it is that I'm trying to get. And for that, the learning lessons, the opportunities to learn from that, they provide you with tremendous growth to be better moving forward. And so, very, very simple when you're in those situations where things look bleak. Um, I would recommend, encourage you to only worry about what it is that you can control. And I'm not saying that what you can control is going to lead you to success. It's going to lead you to learning, which in turn, I think, leads you to a level of success.
You said one of my key words that I love is intentional, right? And one of the
Yeah.
things we've learned over time is, that distraction follows intention, right? And you're touching on, you know, controlling what you can control, right? And so I see you thinking about that, right? So what does that mean to you when you're reflecting
Yeah.
on, things you've been intentional on? And I always say to people, like, when you're intentional on something, that means you're really going for something. And then when you do that, you do see some level of success, right? Success isn't one big thing; it's micros, right? So that add on. But within that, when you understand, when you see that there's a distraction, how do you recognize that, and how do you pull yourself through that?
For me, I looked or appeared as though I was thinking, but I think there's a saying, or I know there's a saying above my board that I was reading. And it just says purpose eliminates distraction. And so allowing myself to stay attached to whatever the purpose is, what is the
Mm,
long haul or long goal? What am I trying to accomplish? And staying attached to that, regardless of what happens, whether it be distractions, whether it be situations where I've gotten over something to get me towards that. I think staying attached to the purpose, what drives you, what allows you to be intentional, I think is really, really important. And again, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm one of those guys that can play a lot of mental gymnastics. So I have to keep things really, really simple. And I like simple because there's clarity in simple.
Mhm.
And those things are really, really important to me. Not those things, those words, the
Right.
definition of those words and being able to live those words out. They're really, really important to me. And you go back to your original question of what it is that you can control. You can control your clarity. You can control how simple things are. You can control how complicated things are. There are certain things that you can control in any given situation that allow you to walk a certain type of path. And it doesn't mean, again, I don't want to give the inclination that every path is hunky dory.
Right.
Hey, they're not.
But it's those are the ones that create that character for you though too though, right? So
No
you said
question.
so talking about path, right? So how did your journey in this industry begin?
You know what's crazy, man? I grew up the son of a coach, right? So my father was my high school coach. He was my original coach as far back as I can remember, all the way up to I didn't have another coach until I started playing AAU basketball.
Wow.
And it's crazy, man. Like I ran from coaching because of my dad. Not that it was
Right.
bad, just I didn't want to live that life. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want kids to depend on me and just what I was witnessing and what I was seeing on a day-to-day basis, I ran from it. I didn't really want to have anything to do with it. And so when I graduated school, college, I had an opportunity to play a little bit overseas and all of that stuff. And then I got into being a sports agent. And I thought that was
Okay.
my calling because my niche was it allowed me to stay connected to the game, but it also allowed me to get on the floor with our clients, and that was my niche. Was I would sit across those guys and I'd say, "Hey, man, we're not going to hire a trainer or whatever. You're looking at them. I'm going to be the one in the gym with you and on the floor with you, and so on and so forth." And so I thought that was my path. But the college coach that I played for at UC Davis, his name is Bob Williams. One day I went out to see him during the recruiting period in July, and I went to see him. And at the place that I went to see him, there's four different courts, and it's a gagab of people, and so I walk in the gym, and I have to go across the courts, and across the courts are just an unbelievable amount of coaches that were lined up watching the games. And coach was all the way at the other end of the gym. And it literally took me 45 minutes to get from one end of the gym to the other end of the gym because of the fortunate pleasure of knowing a bunch of the coaches, whether I played
Yeah.
with, played against, mentors, whatever the case may be. And he literally stood up. He didn't say hi. He didn't say hey. He didn't greet me. He asked me a question, and it wasn't. Um, he didn't use this language. It wasn't. It was rated R language. But he asked me a question. He said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Get your behind on this side of the fence where you belong." And that is how college coaching happened for me. I
Wow.
was able to take that conversation and those instructions because I already felt it. I just needed a nudge to be in that direction and move in that direction. And so from that conversation, and we had a lengthy conversation. And from that, I just basically went back to my alma mater. I called the coach who was an assistant coach and now is the head coach or was the head coach. And I just asked if he had a situation, and he welcomed me with open arms. And um, he allowed me to do any and everything that involved with making the program or helping the program run, from recruiting to on the floor skill development to office work to being aware, making me aware of the budget, making me aware of team travel, just all of the aspects that went into college coaching that I was unaware of. Things happen, and from I would say maybe from an administrative standpoint, and I'm saying administrative because it's all paperwork and this and that. It wasn't coaching per se that I was exposed to, and that's how I got my start. And that coach's name is Brian Fogel, who literally gave me an opportunity that a lot of guys nowadays they would do anything for. And so he blessed me with that opportunity to get my feet wet in all areas. Like he didn't say, "Hey, you got to do this or just do that." He said, "Hey, whatever we're doing, you're doing, and you better be understanding of what that takes and how to get good at it, and so on and so forth." And it was an unbelievable experience, and that was kind of the foundation, but also the launching pad into my career.
Well, it sounds like he allowed you to make mistakes too.
Without question.
Yeah. So
Without
so so
question. And
let's talk about the importance of that, right? How do you how do you feel that impacted you, right, and helped you grow, like having knowing that you can make mistakes.
it impacted me in different ways, to where I had a conversation with our team yesterday, and I encouraged them to make mistakes. Told them I am okay with you making mistakes. In fact, I want you to make mistakes because there's just so much growth from those opportunities. But not only is there growth, but the response time in our game, as far as basketball, because of the up and down, you don't have time to take 35 seconds to go to a huddle and think about what just happened and contemplate that and then figure out what's going to happen next. You don't have time for that. It is it
Right.
is it is up and down and all around, and it's really really quick. And so you see guys slapping their hand. Hey man, don't do that. Just acknowledge you made a mistake and keep it moving. And so I think
Right.
that's a really really important part of growth is A, having the awareness that that is going to happen. B, how am I going to respond from said mistake? And then C, um, allowing yourself to make the next play your best play, whatever it is. And I think if you approach things like that, it's very helpful in terms of your growth. It's very helpful and beneficial, and allows you to develop a certain type of perspective that includes mistakes, and mistakes are such a large part of what it is that we do. I mean, think about this in terms of baseball. Out of 10 times at bat, if they hit the ball 3 times,
We're
they're
great.
almost a Hall of Famer, like guaranteed Hall of Famer, right?
Yes.
But if you analytically or you statistically or mathematically say 30% out of 10 out of 100%, those are terrible odds.
Right.
But I think just in what it is that we do, acknowledging the fact that you're going to go up to the plate and you're probably going to miss 7, maybe 8 times. You're not going to get on base. And realizing why and what that looks like, and also having an understanding of grace. I keep using that word, and
It's an important word.
grace
It's an important
is
word.
super, super important. Grace for yourself, grace from your in my opinion, in for me, God. Um,
Hmm.
there's a certain level of grace that I think you have to allow for yourself, so that you understand that there is only one perfect person,
That's it.
and I ain't him.
That's right. And you
And
don't have
so
to
I
be,
think
right?
I
You
think
don't have
that
to be.
has a lot to do with it. Yeah. And I can't. As much as
Right.
I try to be, I can't. It's impossible.
Facts. Good deal. So you touched on a few things, right? You talked about, and what I hear is value in mentorship, right? And having, the right mentors. Um, and I'll take a step back. Seeking out mentors, right, is
Hmm.
important steps there.
Yeah.
Um, do you provide that for anybody right now, right? Is that something that you seek to do for others? Mentorship?
Without question. I literally had the fortune of being able to establish something that's called the think tank. And we established it maybe 1 or 2 years after we got the head coaching job here, and it was a simple premise, because when I got to this league, there were probably a handful, maybe more than a handful of young black coaches that were asking at the time one of our assistants, "Hey, how does D do this? And how does D do that? And what does he think about this?" And I was just like, "Man, stop asking me all those questions. How about let's just get in a room after it's
Mm,
all said and after the season? I don't care if they're in our league. We compete against each other. I don't subscribe to that. Um, what I subscribe to is growth. What I subscribe to is learning. What I subscribe to is being able to put yourself around people that have the same mindset and hear different and share different perspectives. And so that's how the think tank really came about. It started with 18 or 16 people, 16 coaches, black coaches in a room. And we literally sat around and had some conversations around different topics that included mental health, that included the day-to-day stuff that goes on from a head coach's seat, um, how to be a valuable assistant, financial stuff. There were 5 or 6 different topics that we talked about and shared perspectives, not necessarily to be the expert, but allowing each other to hear that, hey, man, he's going through the same thing, but he has a different perspective. And so, from a mentorship standpoint, I try to go out of my way to provide anyone really with my experience. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or different. I'm just telling you that it's my experience, it's my walk. Um, Take what you can from it, or take nothing from it. I don't really care about that part of it. If you want to know something, ask me. I try to make myself available only because that was what was done for me when I was coming up. There was a handful of coaches that I sought out. Like if I saw them in the gym sitting somewhere recruiting, or if I was aware that they were going to be in a gym, I would try to do everything I could to be in that gym with them, to literally sit next to them and look at their notes and ask them, why you write that down? Hey, what do you think about this? Why do you like that person? What about the, just an inordinate amount of questions that I would ask to help me with my own philosophy and create my own thoughts and generate my own way of going about doing business. And those guys were unbelievable. David Carter, Gary Stewart, Marvin Menzies. Those guys were unbelievable. They were a handful of guys. And even now today, I mean, Coach Rod Barnes at Bakersfield, Conzo Martin at Missouri State now. I mean, those are guys that I look up to and say, well, and the thing is that they open up like they get upset when I don't call, or if I call them and say I'm sorry for bugging you. Hold up, man, you're not bugging me at all.
Right.
Let's talk. Let's have some conversation. And so it just feels good to be able to have access to them, but it also feels good to be able to provide other coaches, other people in the business, other people that are not in the business, just a different perspective, or my perspective, I should say.
And that kind of brings it another question. So like misconceptions, common misconceptions, or like ill-conceived barriers about getting into, your space. What do you think those could be? And are they warranted or
I,
unwarranted, right?
they're both. I think they're both. One of the biggest fears is, or one of the biggest um, obstacles, if you will, is fear. We're scared to put ourselves out there. We don't know. Even now, as a 50-year-old man, there's still a level of fear. Like I don't want to call them and bug them. And no, they don't look at it like that. Some people may, but they don't. I'm really,
Mhm.
really fortunate to be around some guys that don't look at it like that. But I think the opportunity, just itself, there are more people than there are opportunities, right? And so,
Right.
like you think about this in terms of traffic. I live in Los Angeles, obviously, so traffic is not
It's a nightmare.
uncommon, but it has nothing to do with anything other than there's so many people on the road trying to go a certain place that the freeway just can't hold everybody, and so it comes to a screeching halt. It's just like these opportunities are the same. There's just not as many opportunities available for those guys, and even being more specific in terms of you may think, hey, I want this opportunity, and what you want it is there, but it may not look like you want it to look. It may look a different way, and so
Right.
I would say there's just the opportunity itself, and then who's vouching for you. I think is really, really, really important as we come and go. When we make relationships with different people, what they say about you when they're not around can help or can hurt. It could be the difference maker for you to get a situation or an opportunity, or it could be an opportunity, or be a situation where what they said didn't jive well and didn't put you in as good of a light as maybe you thought or maybe you hoped. And so I would say those three things, just among many, they're very, very, very not consistent, but they're out there. not being able to do the job the way you think the job should be done.
Right.
And I always ask this question, no matter what position we're talking about, discussing, hiring for, is how do you add value to the previous staff? What would they say about you? And then what can we expect moving forward? Like, if you're here with us, how do you add value to us? What is it that you do that you think we need um, to help us be better? And to me, it's a loaded question, but it's not. Again, I said
Right.
this before, keeping things very, very simple.
You lot of insight, a lot of questions from that too. So you touched on networking, right? What tips can you
Hmm.
give, current, future sports professionals, um, into one, the value? I think you've hit on that, but the how to, right? Because a lot of folks just don't understand how to even get started in the networking piece, and we know it involves communication. But can you, from a simple side of it, but help some future sports professionals out with how you think they can enhance their networking skills and abilities?
Yeah, I think being intentional, with what it is that you do in terms of not necessarily looking for or looking to establish that relationship because it can help you, because it can be beneficial for you immediately.
Mhm.
It might not, but maintaining that relationship. And there's so many platforms for us to reach each other. There's text messages, there's email, there's TikTok, there's DMs, there's all of these things. But I think being very intentional, I think you have to not have to, but maybe studying or having a little bit of information about who it is that you wish to network with. I think
Mhm.
um, we as people, again, we're too broad. If you want to network, I think it's really important for you to understand or know who and why you want to network with that person, and tell them, hey man, I want to know you because X, Y, and Z. And be intentional with who they are and how they move, and what you can learn from them. But utilizing the various platforms, but also there's nothing that can be said for face to face contact. So if you're in that area or you intentionally go to that area, hey man, I want to learn, or I want to sit in on the practice, or I want to come by and I got two questions to ask you. Hey, can I bring you a cup of coffee? And over that cup of coffee, can I ask you three questions? But again, being intentional with who it is you network with and why you network with them, and the effort behind doing that will allow you to take, you meant to network with Christian, like that was your thing. But as you were going through that, you were able to connect with two or three other people.
Right.
And those three other people become networking opportunities. And again, it's the effort behind moving forward and being intentional with how you do things. How we network nowadays is completely different than what we used to do back when I would say you and I were coming up,
Right.
um, because of computers, because of, all of the things, all of the
All the
platforms
stuff.
that we
Yeah.
have access to. But utilizing those to say, okay, well, dang, I want to network with D. He doesn't TikTok, so don't try to reach me on TikTok.
Correct.
You know what I mean? He's on Instagram. Okay, well, I can send him a DM, or I can send him an email, or whatever the case may be. I think it's very important that we are intentional with how and who we network with.
Yeah, and I'm gonna throw one other thing in that. Start with your why as well, right? Because you
No
resonate with
doubt.
people that you share that why with them, right? And when you come with the right intentions, to your point, the real you is going to shine, and that's the most important piece about networking, right? Because like you said, you're intentional, but what are your reasons, right? So make sure they're pure
No doubt.
to who you are, is a big key. And I want to shift a little bit because part of this too is skills and attributes that are essential, right, for success in your industry, your space. So I want to go two layers with you, right? So just baseline or simple um, essential skills and attributes, and then get into, for me and for everyone else, as a head coach in the Big West Conference. or for any conference in that matter, there's things like there's skills like managerial skills. There's hiring that's involved. There's P&L. So touch on that kind of stuff that people may not realize that you're really getting doing at the level that you do it at.
Yeah, man. I mean, God darn it. Just to answer your first question in terms of what skills, what attributes, and those things. I'm a Me personally, my perspective. I am a huge energy person. Again, there's actually a printed saying above my board, and it says, "Be responsible for the energy that you bring to the space." And I stole that from a doctor who, if you have time, look up her story. Her name is Dr. Jill Bolte. She was on Oprah Winfrey one day, and she has a heck of a story. But the energy is so important. How you provide energy. I'll share. I had to share a quick story with you. I had to hire two spots this right now.
Hmm.
So new that they're not even official yet. That's how new we went through it. But
Right.
the thing that was really, really, really important to me was energy. And that made the difference between hiring one guy versus the other. One guy that we were able to get, his energy just exuded through the interview. It exuded through everything that he did, whether he text messaged you, whether he sent you an email. You could absorb it and you could receive it, and so those that's really, really important. I mean, you don't want to be somebody who's dragging around every single day, and your energy is low. And now
Right.
how are you helping the situation? um but that's one skill. And then the other thing is, I think you have to look at the total picture and figure out, how do you, again, going back to that word value, but how do you make that situation better? And then how do you make that situation to where, if you don't show up to work that day, or you're not in the office, that situation is not going to be as good. It's not going to roll. So invaluable, indispensable. I heard Calipari talk about that, and that was his thing. It's like, if you don't make yourself or put yourself in that situation, you become indispensable in a lot of ways. And so, um, hopefully, I answered your question a little bit,
No, that
in
does.
terms
That
of
does.
just some of the skill. I mean, now it's, everybody's a workout guy, everybody is an X and O guy, and quite frankly, when you sit in my seat, um, probably 95% of your day is centered around things that have absolutely nothing to do with X's and O's. Has nothing to do with skill development. It has nothing to do with actually winning and losing on the floor. It has everything to do with winning and losing off the floor, from, hey, housing, scholarship checks. Those things are really, really, really important, because they make your program go. And if your players are not comfortable at practice, they're worried about, scholarship check didn't hit and how they're going to pay rent. They're not going to be as good as you need them to be on the floor. And so,
Right.
academically, if they're not going to class and not taking care of business, getting in this class, getting out of this class, that class. I mean, there's a number of things that go into building a program. How you travel, team travel. What's your experience with that? Being able to book um, a bus, being able to handle team travel, as far as you are responsible for almost 22 players. I mean, 22 people in your travel party. What does that look like? There's that aspect of it. A lot of us only get to see what happens between the lines at 7 o'clock. We
Right.
don't see what happened before then, in terms of the pregame meal. We don't see what happened in terms of the projector at the hotel didn't work, and how to figure that out. We don't see the pregame meal or postgame meal didn't show up on time. How do you still get your guys food? Those are some of the aspects that go into, building a program, and branding a program, if you will.
How important is, from your side, um, understanding have a good understanding of emotional intelligence?
Ooh. I mean, the more I do this, the longer I'm around, I think it becomes even more important. Just being able to manage and understand and control and utilize your own emotions first, how they show up in different situations and different scenarios. But then also, we're talking about dealing with 17, 18 to 21, 22, 23 year olds, and their emotions change with the wind. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? The wind could be going this way, they could feel great. And all of a sudden, in 3 seconds, the wind could change directions and go that way, and they can be pissed off to the highest level of festivity. And
Right.
if you don't know how to recognize that, if you don't know how to deal with that, um, you are going to be in for a rude awakening. And a lot of what we do nowadays is no longer about the X's and O's. It's about the Jimmy and Joes in terms of their emotional state, in terms
Mhm.
of their mental health and their mental capacity, and being able to put different things aside and focus on this. And no, they can't focus on this because they're worried about that over there. They're worried about. You have to be aware of all of those things and be able to put them in place for them to be able to concentrate on the task at hand, whatever the task at hand it is. You know, it may be stepping to the free throw line with the game on the line and the game's tied. It may be taking a final, and you need that final to pass that class, a good grade on that final to pass that class. It could be any number of things. You know, it could be something that's it's not simple. You know, their mom's coming to town. They don't have a car. They're not sure how to pick up their mom from the airport. You know, different things of that capacity. And again, I think one of the biggest skill sets behind that is just the awareness to be able to know that that person feels good about that right now, or that person is they're not as receptive to that, or they're struggling with this, you know. And to me, it's all tied into it's an emotional space.
Yeah. And that to me that feeds into something that's important, to me is instilling confidence, right? And
Hmm.
you're doing that, right? So I want to switch into talking about confidence. So I have my board here. So we talk about UC Davis, Loyola Marymount, Portland State, Nevada, Arizona State, and then you were at Arizona State for about how long? About
7 years.
7 years, right?
Hmm.
And then you moved into and I did find out associate head coach, right?
Yeah.
Top 25
Yeah.
college insider assistant coach, right? That's awesome. And
Sure.
then you jumped
Thank
into
you.
the head coaching position to where you're at right now.
Hmm.
So my question is, what gave you the confidence to go into that role?
um I would say a lot of it is failing forward. I failed.
Mhm.
I failed. I'll give you a perfect example of failing forward. Um, there was an opportunity for I was at Arizona State for the first year working at under Herb Sendek, and it was my scout, meaning I was in charge of putting or preparing the team to win the game,
Right.
talking about personnel, talking about actions and different things. And so I think that's my strong suit. Like, hey, I'm really good at it. That's my deal. Like, I'm good. So there's a level of arrogance, not confidence. There's a level of arrogance tied to it. And so I'm putting the things on the floor, and Coach Sendek says, you know, well, what about this? And I was like, what do you mean? I didn't that doesn't happen. And he was like, yes, it does. And this is in front of the full team. I am just not a rookie, but this is my first opportunity, you know. And here this guy is, and he's telling me that my stuff's not right. I need to be more inclusive. And so he said, "Hey, what about this?" Finally, he asked another one of the coaches, and the other coach ended up having to take over, and he showed 2 or 3 actions that I completely missed. Most people get in their feelings and they say, "Oh man, screw that guy." Blah, 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 blah. You know, they look at it as though he was trying to show them up on the court. As this stuff is happening in my mind, I'm saying, I cannot wait to get to the film to find out if I missed something, to find out if coach is out of line, you know, out of order. And as soon as we broke the huddle, Archie Miller, he's the head coach at Rhode Island now. He was able to
Mhm.
basically finish the scout. He put more actions that I missed. onto the floor, preparing the team. As soon as we broke the huddle, I went right to my computer. And lo and behold, sure enough, there was some stuff that I missed. But again, having the awareness and having the mindset of I want to be as good as I need to be, as good as I can be for this group. And I vowed to myself, and I don't know that it's happened since then, but I vowed to myself, I will never, ever let that happen again. And in my mind, I felt like I was underprepared. What I had did previous to that point at Portland State, at Nevada, at Loyola, it was good enough then. It wasn't good enough for what we know now as was the Pac-12. So we had to step our game up. And so just being able to understand what that taught me. And so failing and falling forward. Had that situation not have happened, I would have continued to probably grow in arrogance. But now I am able to prepare myself and give myself confidence in knowing that, hey, confidence comes from doing things right over and over and over again. And that's the way that I prepare myself. And yeah, there's multiple stories behind that I could share with you where I've been fortunate to fail forward. There's been other
Yeah.
opportunities where I've been able to, because of that, I've been able to, you know, utilize my experience that allows me to have a level of confidence to know that I can exist. But the thing that I would say in terms of my confidence that helps in any situation is that my effort. I know I can control my effort, and I am going to give you, no matter what situation I'm in, I want you to walk away from any interaction with me knowing I got that dude's best effort. Might not have been good enough, but I got every piece of what he had to offer. And I got his complete energy. If I have those two things and I've given you, and I can walk around and you know you can count on me for that, there it is.
You
That's my
touched on
perspective.
you just touched on a critical sequence, right? You mastered your emotions in that moment, right? You reflected and kind of said to yourself, what could I have done differently? Right? You
Mhm.
didn't place blame on anyone else. And then the third thing is your goal was to look at it and then learn from it to get better. Right? That's such a critical sequence, right? And I think anybody can use that moving forward, especially our younger folks that might be listening, right? These are things that you're going to have to do if you want to get to a certain point. You have to get to that level, right? So I'm going to go here. What was your most rewarding experience so far? And you can't say
Ooh,
graduating all your players because I know that's fulfilling and I know that's rewarding, right? So I'm gonna make you say something else.
yeah, yeah. I would say this. There's a picture of my father and I embracing one another after the first time we went to the Big West, or excuse me, after the first time that we won the Big West Conference tournament to advance to the NCAA tournament. And I would say that moment was rewarding for so many different reasons. It was rewarding because of the relationship that I have and share with my dad,
Mm,
who he is in my world, and that speaks. I mean, we probably could spend the rest of the time just talking about that. Um, that relationship. Like when I was a
sure,
young man, my father said to me, "Hey, man, you only have your word in your name." And when you damage either one of those or both of those, you are ruined. And so I've lived by that and tried to do everything I can to not damage that. One day, my dad said to me as a young kid, or I was in high school, he said, "Hey, man, when you walk out that door, don't embarrass my name.
that's
Do
right.
not embarrass my name." And I was like, at the time, once again, the arrogance, I was like, "Man, shut up. I got this." And lo and behold, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But then there's also a level of validation for coaching, for building a program, going through some of the dark times that we had gone through here, winning only 3 games in a conference season. Um, there was a level of validation that we were doing things the right way, or I shouldn't say the right way. We were doing things that led to a level of success. Um, there was like I said, a moment of validation not only our beliefs, but it confirmed that we were heading in the right direction with the type of young men that we were recruiting, with the type of skill sets that we were recruiting. Obviously, we had to grow and get better and continue to grow and get better. But that word in itself, and I think I said that at the press conference, after winning that game, there was a moment of validation attached to that moment in time that I will never ever forget, because it was rewarding. All of the dark nights, all of the days that I was sleepless, all of the nights that I thought that dadgummit, I'm not gonna make it. This ain't it. What the hell? That moment in time provided a level of validation for me, but
Nice.
also for everybody else involved and associated with this program.
So you just hit on something is, and I know from experience, trying to call you guys in season is almost impossible, right? And even in the off season, like the
Yeah.
fact that you're here now, I'm honored, right? So because you guys are
Yeah,
just
I appreciate it.
busy, man. I mean, for people who
Yeah.
don't know, busy, right? Um, but work-life balance is important, right? And so how
It
have you
is.
been able to maintain that, throughout your career?
Um, wow. Man, I mean, I'll share two instances with you where I think there was a shift. I don't know what balance is, quite frankly. Like I challenge that word, not from a standpoint of you saying it, but like it's a challenge amongst myself. It's an argument with myself. Balance.
Hmm.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Balance. Like I got two girls and they all they want to do is come to the office. What? Let's go to the beach or let's go. But balance, I don't really know if I know what that means. But the two instances I'm speaking about is I had the fortune of meeting Morgan Wooten, who's a long time, very, 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 very successful, if not one of the most successful high school coaches in America. And I had the pleasure of rooming with one of his former athletes. Heath Stroyer is his name. And so I went back and had an opportunity to meet with him. And he said, "Hey, man, don't ever chase money, chase success." And that just changed the trajectory of my thought process, my perspective. And it just gave me a new perspective in terms of trying to establish a level of balance between work and your personal life or whatever that is. But it also set me on a road realizing that I didn't have any family. I didn't have any, it was just me. And so I didn't have balance. I was just go,
Breaking
go,
away.
go, 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 go.
Yeah.
Because I was under the belief if I didn't do it, it wasn't going to get done. Once
Stay there.
again,
Stay there for me. Stay
arrogance.
there for me. So you were of that belief.
Once again,
What's your belief
yeah.
now on that?
So the second thing that changed is I developed a tumor during COVID, or actually it was the season before November, and we had COVID. I think 2020. So this was 2019.
Hmm.
Coached the whole season with a tumor. That was extremely, extremely painful, extraordinarily painful. And um, fast forward the season, we have the season, it gets cut short, and so the whole world is shut down. And I'm saying to myself, man, I'm waking up with these headaches, and I'm not getting any sleep. And so I was like, let me just call, see what's going on. Well, one thing led to another, and so it leads to me being in the hospital and me having to undergo surgery to remove this nerve or remove this tumor. It's a benign tumor, and at the
Hmm.
time, the doctor was telling me that the tumor was located in an area on a nerve, sitting on a nerve that controlled my balance and my strength.
Mm.
And if I lose it, it will be hell to pay if I got it back. If I got it back.
Right.
So there was a conversation once again that was had at 2:56 in the morning. They were coming to get me to go to surgery at 5. I wasn't asleep, obviously. I didn't know what I didn't know. But at any rate, during COVID, no family, no nothing. No one could be at the hospital. Nobody could be in the room, so on and
Right.
so
Right.
forth. And so I had this conversation with God, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, man, like, what am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to respond? What And we have the racial stuff going on. We have the whole world shut down. We have all of these different things. And he said, "Hey man, like literally," he said, "Hey man, if you don't respond out of love and productivity in every area of your life, you're out of line." And from that conversation, I've determined that my life would be led by love and productivity. And so the balance comes into play of when I'm with my girls, I do everything I can. I got 2 phones. I do everything I can to throw them in the back of the car, and
Mhm.
I'm present with my girls. If I'm recruiting, I'm present with recruiting. I do everything I can. I don't always accomplish it, but I do everything I can to be present in the moment. If I'm out on the floor coaching, I don't even bring my phones. I try not, I just try to be present.
Right.
And I try to give each situation my love. And it has totally, totally changed the way that I look at and approach situations. And it also has given me intentionality with my purpose of, hey, I can't be the best at everything. I can only be the best at certain things. And I'm super thankful that we have a staff that understands that, buys into that, and really, really, really helps cover my blind spots, that allow me to have a level of balance. My girls are here. We went to Disneyland on Monday. We went to not, and literally, I could care. If you call my phone, sorry, I don't care. You'll be there when I
Yep.
get there.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But as a younger coach, I didn't understand that. I didn't appreciate that. And I think in order for us to be as good as we need to be in any given situation, we have to allow ourselves grace and mercy, to sharpen the sword, to unplug, so to speak, to regain your energy. And that's something that I am now aware of, and I intentionally will unplug because I can't be everything for everybody at all the time.
Right.
And that's the way that I approach balance. Now, again, the Webster definition of that word, I don't know that I just described the perfect situation of balance, but that's my version of balance.
I think balance includes buy-in too, though, right?
No doubt.
And that's definitely part of it. You sound like you got that. So I'm gonna close this out. It's been fantastic conversation. Um, just leave us with any advice you have for anyone looking to get into the sports industry, the college basketball coaching industry.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to come back to that word intentionality. We might not know what it is that we want, but we know, give me a second. We might not know what we want, but we know and we're aware of the fact that we have a desire to do something.
Mhm.
And whatever that something is, if you are consistent with your effort, if you're consistent with your energy, I guarantee you'll like the end result of whatever it is. I was very fortunate, obviously, to hear Tom Brady speak at his Hall of Fame induction, and he said something that I think that has gone viral, but I think is super duper important, and it really, really typifies the goats that we know now. You know, the level of consistency and the way that they work doesn't matter about the situation. You're going to get Tom Brady's best. You're going to get Tom Brady's consistency. You're going to get Michael Jordan. They're not the most talented dudes. They'll tell you, hey, I'm not. I'm not the most talented. But I will outwork anyone and
Mhm.
provide you with the level of consistency no matter what the situation is, whether it's practice, whether it's games. And so I heard Tony Dungy say this, and I know I'm going around. I heard Tony Dungy say this. The saying is we sink to the level or we rise to the level of the occasion. No, we don't. He said, we rise or sink to the level of our habits. So
Mhm.
whatever habits you create, that is what's going to sustain you moving forward. Create good habits. Create good habits in terms of what you think will help you get to where it is that you're trying to go. And because of the effort behind those habits that you're creating on a day-to-day basis, it will deliver you to ways and things that you are not even aware of. And that's
Good
what I would
stuff.
strongly suggest.
That's good stuff. Listen, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. First episode
No
of How'd You
problem.
Get There, starring my guy, Dedrique Taylor, head men's basketball coach, Cal State Fullerton. Appreciate you, Coach.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Be good.